It's FlamesNation Radio. I'm Ryan. He's Shane. Hi, Shane.
Hi, everybody.
So, as folks are watching this on the video feed, will notice that Shane looks rather dapper. Shane has obviously been through a change in dwelling that wasn't his choice. During that process, he apparently only lost one jersey, but it was his beloved Blasty jersey.
Yeah, my Raz jersey, it had a bunch of mold on it by the time I was able to go in and grab it. So
okay, let's in terms of your jersey collection, what was the ratio of jerseys saved to jersey lost? Because you lost one.
Let me see here. I've got my I've got my Tarasenko Retro Blues, my Ovechkin Capitals, my Patrick Kane Winter Classic, and then all my Flames jerseys, my Brody Script jersey, my Johnny Flags, my double AHF jersey got saved, my Minnesota Vikings jersey got saved, my 3 Leafs jerseys got saved. You can roast me for that later, folks. It's fine. And it's about like 14 saved to 1 lost. So
that's a pretty good ratio. That's a pretty good ratio.
The only reason the Blasty one is gone is because it was the one I wore most recently, and it was in the laundry hamper.
It was the
one that got soaked by the fire hydrant water.
It was your most loved jersey most recently, and unfortunately now your love will have to go to other jerseys. As per usual, this is a playoff edition, a first round playoff edition of FlamesNation Radio, brought to you as always by the fine folks at DoorDash and by Eau Claire Distilleries, makers of Rupert's Whiskey, the official whiskey of the Calgary Flames. And what better way to there's 2 ways, folks, to enjoy. Okay, 3 ways of enjoying Flames hockey during the postseason. Obviously, one way is in your own home with your own food, your own couch, your own drinks. And if you're thirsty, get some Rupert's Whiskey, get some food delivered by DoorDash. That's a good way to enjoy a game. If you want to get out of your house, maybe you're tired of your family, you're tired of your roommates, you just want to get out and socialize a bit in a safe setting. We'll recommend we'll plug this again at the end. Our friends Noah Adler and Princey are hosting a little get together at the Red Lot, which is just outside the Saddle Dome for Game 2 on Thursday. The game starts at 8. People will be there much earlier, so if you get down to the Red Lot, you're going to go hang out anyway. Go find Princey and Noah and have some fun. Shane will be down there too. So at the very least,
I am going. I want to be as close to the action as possible. Last time I went to the Red Mile was Game 3. They were playing against Colorado, and out and about. And I was at the Cabana on 17th, watching with a bunch of friends, and that didn't really go their way.
It didn't go that well for a lot of people. The third way, obviously, the best but most expensive way to enjoy Flames hockey in the playoffs is to be physically in the building. So yeah, we might as well transition to Game 1. I'll say this: it was the first sellout the second sellout of the season. It was, in terms of human beings and seats, the Saddle Dome has not been more full. I talked to some folks in the organization and in the building services department. There was, I'd say, maybe at most 50 empty seats in the building.
If they were empty, they were up, or they're probably up walking around, right?
Yeah. So it was full. Let's put it that way. It was full. So they did. But I think it was a really nice. I'll give a shout out to the Flames game operations team, the presentation team. The atmosphere is really cool. They did a lot of cool stuff with the intros. The intros are really cool. The fans who showed up are loud and excited, and you couldn't hear jack shit for good periods of the game. At the end of the game, they could not hear the end of the game horn and whistles and stuff because the fans were so loud. So if you were in attendance, kudos to you, friends, because you were loud, and they were treated to a pretty good hockey game. I think it was really 2 games, Shane, because the first period we saw, I was sitting up top in my usual spot, and the Flames in the first period were as good offensively and in terms of possession and all that stuff as the Flames have been all season. They the Dallas Stars did not get significant zone time until about 12 minutes into the period. Their first shot on goal was until 11:06 into the first period. The Flames got the first, I think, 10 or 12 shots or close to it. Like it was very one-sided, and it was well-deserved. The Flames, they did their thing, and Dallas seemed back on their heels. And then at the end of the first period is really where it tilted, because there was the pair of fights. The Flames lose Rasmus Anderson. Dallas loses John Klingberg. Both teams lose a really important forward for 5 minutes, which sort of screwed up their forward rotations. And B, both teams lost a top two pairing defenseman for the entire rest of the game. And so I think both teams would say that they didn't really have the ability to roll their lines very much. And for the Flames, Shane, I'm sure you'd attest to, the Flames are at their best when they're playing 5-on-5 and all their lines are engaged. And for that second period, there was, I think, 8 minutes and 13 seconds of 5-on-5 play. And it was the Flames had a power play, and then maybe 30 seconds of 5-on-5. And then Dallas had a power play. And then the Flames got a power play again. And then there's a short 5-on-3. And then, now Dallas got a power play again. It was a very weird period. And then I thought the third period, the Flames normalized a bit. And I think things tightened up a bit in the third period. The Flames did a nice job of really standing their ground. And I think Dallas had 3 shots on goal in the third period.
3 in the third. 3. That's it.
That's pretty good. And I thought if you're looking, for one takeaway from the first game, outside of the fact is, yay, they won, hurrah. I think it was how they won, because that's a kind of game where the other editions of the Flames, other versions of the Flames, past editions of the Flames would have come in and gone, okay, we're going to play this particular type of game. And they'd be really happy in the first period because they did it. And then second period, the game would change on them and be like, oh man, well, let's just keep playing the same way. And the game would have got away from them. And I thought they were really good at adapting to the circumstances and just rolling with it. And I think that the adaptability is why they won that game, and why they didn't, I think everyone watching that game was thinking in the back of their minds, okay, so this is where Dallas ties it, right? And then it just never happened, because they played their game and they adapted well.
They were locked in defensively from the start. They weren't going to give Dallas anything. And Rasmus Anderson in that first period at 5-on-5 had 0 expected goals against. It's like losing him was massive. He spent the entire 5 minutes that he had of 5-on-5 time, plus he was a first power play man, he didn't get to touch the puck on the power play goal because it was just the 3 amigos up front there that did that. But he was crucial, and losing him hurt Calgary more than Dallas losing Klingberg at the end of the night.
Daryl Sutter after the game, he noted Rasmus plays really important. I think he's really important.
He's the number 1 D man.
Daryl flat out said that. And I think, very nice compliment for Rasmus Anderson, especially, in a broad sense. This is the guy that his fitness is criticized by Brad Living a few years ago at a training camp and development camp, even when he was pushing for an NHL job. Mm-hmm. And he just kept growing his game, but he's probably their best transition D-man in terms of he and Noah Hannafin are very good at sort of moving the puck between them and then moving the puck up. Anderson's also really good at picking his spots. He's probably got the best shot of all the blue liners in the team. Michael Stone, we apologize for the slight, but I mean, Anderson hits the net more often. He also plays more often. But I think the other thing is, Anderson touches the game in so many different ways, and he's such a stabilizing force that you lose him and you have to shift around a lot of what you do. And I thought, I thought they did a really nice job. Like you take away a guy that does everything for you, or a little of everything. And, I thought it could have been something that really upended them a bit. And I think they were really good at not letting it. And I think that's on the team, but I think it's also on the coaching staff, because, Eric Branson mentioned to us post game, they got told basically, I think Danny Austin from Post Media asked, like, what do they say to you after the period when they find out that you're not getting Rasmus Anderson for the rest of the game? They're basically like, well, we not much, but we basically went, oh no, he's a righty and he's a penalty killer. What do we do? And then so they had to split up the usual defensive pairing on the PK1 is Tanev and Branson. They're both righties. So what do? So you have to put one on each, and then you have them each playing with someone on PK they don't normally play with.
And he won't play. And Sutter mentioned he won't play Shillington on the PK. he won't do it.
It's not so much his phrasing was he doesn't play PK because Shillington has not killed penalties. Shillington wasn't a penalty killer in the AHL. He hasn't been a penalty killer in the NHL. And in a playoff game, it's not really fair to
you don't want
a guy for a guy who's in his first full year of the NHL. It's kind of unfair to say, Oliver, go play penalty kill for the first time in your pro North American career. So it's, I know when I tweeted out, the time on ice for the defenseman after the second period, people were like, how come everyone's got more ice time than Oliver Shillington? The answer is because Oliver doesn't kill penalties.
And he also had a very nice compliment for Noah Hannafin. One of the media members asked about Hannafin, and he said, well, Noah can play minutes. Like, he's like, I'm not worried about that. He's like, Noah can play minutes and Noah can play quality minutes. He said the hard part is Noah can't play minutes on the right side, right? A right man, and that was Tanev or Goodbranson. He said that had to pick up their minutes. Tanev ended up playing 25-51, which I thought before the game started, Chris Tanev is going to be an X factor. He's not going to be an X factor in the goals for column, but he's a huge X factor playoff wise in terms of goals against. And he's been one of the best defensive defensemen.
And we talked about this. Now. We talked about this in previous weeks, during that time when Oliver Shillington was hurt and dealing with that injury, they had Chris Tanev playing with everybody. And even if you look at Chris Tanev's entire time at the Calgary Flames, he played with Rasmus Anderson, and actually played with Noah Hannafin, and that was the best pairing on the team during the first half of the year. And then he got moved over to then he played with Mark Giordano when Daryl Sutter took over, and that was the best defensive pairing. And then Oliver Shillington comes from the Boonies to become a top 4 defenseman, and who they put him with? They put him with Chris Tanev, and they become if not the Flames best pairing, neck and neck for the best pairing. Like, that's been a really fun race to watch between those two pairings. And then Shillington gets injured, and they have Connor Mackey playing with Tanev. They have Zadorov playing with him. They have Stone. You can basically put anybody with Chris Tanev and they'll be effective. And that speaks to how good Chris Tanev is at so many different things, because Chris Tanev is one of those guys that he works his ass off, but he also makes it look easy. And those two things are both hard to do, because a lot of guys they work their ass off and they look like they're gonna die. And there's some guys that they look like they're working hard and they're really just moving around a lot. And Tanev does everything.
If you look at some of these championship teams that have won since 2010, they have their Nick Hjalmarssons, they have their Willie Mitchells, they have their Rob Scuderis, they have their Brooks Orpiks, they have their defensive-minded defensemen that help them win. Right? Like there's always someone that's a defense-specific defenseman that plays really good minutes and provides for them on a championship run. Chris Tanev's the Flames guy. The Flames also have Zadorov, who's been playing very well this year.
It's a cliche, but it's true.
It
Defense wins championships.
And if you look at the heat map, there was 3 high danger chances between both teams. Period.
It was 3-3.
Yep, the whole game.
Well, even just look at in terms. I thought a lot has and will be written about and spoken about the goaltending matchup in the series between young Jake Ottinger and much less young Jacob Markstrom. Markstrom was really good, but he faced 16 shots. He only had, I think, what the
0.77 expected goals.
According to our dear friends at Natural Stat Trick, who just do amazing work. If you haven't been to Natural Stat Trick, go there and speak nicely of them, because they're just nice people that provide really accessible stats to pretty much everybody. The 5-on-5 shots, I believe, were 1917 or 1915. The scoring chances at 5-on-5 were 11-9, and high danger chances were 3-3 at even strength. That's buttoned up. If you're usually if your teams, in terms of the 5-on-5 scoring chances, you're like, if you can give up fewer than 20 shots fewer than 20 scoring chances a game, because the scoring chances include it's Corsi events that are in a specific area of the ice that are considered,
and they have to hit the net. Corsi events will count shot blocks and misses. Scoring chances won't. Scoring chances have to actually hit the goaltender. So that there's a big dichotomy between that. So you do miss a bit in the high danger. If you have a high danger Corsi event, the guy's in tight and he just roofs, goes over the crossbar.
Well, that Natural Stat Trick distinguishes between high danger shots and high danger chances. They're not the same.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're different. So,
But that's the thing. I think in terms of like medium and high danger chances, I think that's how they qualify scoring chances, medium and high danger chances. The Flames were like less, like they give up less than 10 in a 60-minute game. Granted, a lot of 5-on-5 time for a good chunk of it, but in a 60-minute game against a team that, you know, has been playing some really good tight checking hockey. It's Rick Bowness is a good coach. He aggressively pursues specific line matches. Daryl Sutter's much more of a roll of guys, but I think the Flames did a very nice job with how they played. So I mean, what do you say? It's a 1-0 playoff game. They got the result they needed, and was it a perfect game? No, I'm sure they would have liked to have not taken as many penalties. I think as the series goes on, the Flames would want to spend more time playing 5-on-5, but if you're trying to set a tone as you're the Flames, if you let's be honest, like as much as like Shane, you've been talking to fans, I've been talking to fans, we've been on Twitter, people are nervous. I mean, Flames fans, we hear you, we understand your anxiety because it's a team that hasn't won a playoff round since 2015. It's a team that hasn't gotten past the second round since 2004. Like it's a team, even Daryl Sutter would say this, it's an organization, a hockey club that has not had sustained success in a long, long time. And so if you're skeptical, you're like, yeah, show me in the playoffs. Well, the best way to show you the playoffs is by winning a few games. And the best way to win a few games is by winning one game. And yeah, they
win the next game, right?
Yeah,
like that's that mentality. Like right now, the focus is, okay, we got one, right? I'm not even worried about that. I'm worried about the next one. Right? Like,
well, not
the third one, not the fourth.
We might as well transition to talking about game two, because like game two is pretty fascinating because Mike Gould on Twitter pointed out that the Flames, I think, have lost their last 11 game twos. Okay, as the side, is it games 2 or game twos?
Game twos. Because they're each an individual event.
English is very strange. So the Flames have lost their last 11 game twos. The last time they won game 2 was actually in 2004, the conference final, when they beat the San Jose Sharks in the first 2 games. So they were up. That was the series. I believe they won that series in 5, and they won that series in 5 by winning the first 2 games. So I was
at one of those. I don't remember which one. I have a puck from the
I'll say this.
Final.
I said this. I said this on the radio. A lot of folks who were a certain age in 2004 have hazy memories of 2004. So you're a youngster, but
yeah.
Your memories,
grade 4, Pike.
Your memories would be hazy for different reasons than my memories are hazy.
Yeah, exactly. You were late college, and I was in grade 4. So
yeah, but yeah, I think the Flames. I think the nice thing for the Flames is they've been really good at hitting the reset button after good games, bad games, indifferent games. They're really good at hitting the reset button. And I think if you're going into game 2, especially the Flames are, had their best road season ever, and we're one of the top road teams in the entire NHL. You can make a really strong argument. Granted, Dallas is the betting underdog in the series. Before they even played a minute of hockey, they're the betting underdog. Sportsnet, every single person on Sportsnet's expert panel on sportsnet.ca said Flames win the series. Some said
and ESPN and TSN, like not a single major market analyst, NHL.com too. Not a single major market analyst picked Dallas.
Yeah, and so the dichotomy we're going to experience probably the rest of the series and here on out is the Dallas Stars are playing with house money. The Dallas Stars made the postseason. Good, great. They made the postseason. They got a playoff spot in the toughest division in the league, possible. One of the toughest divisions in the league. The Central Division is a murderer's row. Colorado, Minnesota, St. Louis, there are no bad teams there. And Dallas and Nashville are not bad teams either. So there's 5 good teams in that division that made the playoffs. But I don't think it's insulting to the fans of the Stars or Predators to suggest that the expectations for the wildcard teams are lesser than the other 3 teams in the Central. But in terms of the Stars with the Flames, we the 3-4 days leading up to the postseason, we saw analyst after analyst after analyst saying the Flames would win the series. Not only did we hear a lot of them almost unanimously say the Flames would win the series, we heard quite a few of them say the Flames could contend for the Stanley Cup. Many people from Sportsnet's panel said the Flames win the Stanley Cup. From NHL.com, from ESPN, from Yahoo, like all kinds of folks, people who know things, people who are educated, well-versed in the hockey world are saying the Flames could win the Stanley Cup. Some think the Flames will win the Stanley Cup. The Dallas Stars don't have that. The Dallas Stars are going in, and the Dallas Stars have no pressure on them. Like the Dallas Stars, everyone and their dog, hello, Frank from Bag Milk's dog, Frank, not Frank Saravalli, who is not a dog. He's a human being. There's two Franks, but everyone and their dog are saying Flames will win, Stars will lose. So if you're the Stars, I mean, on one hand, losing game one, yeah, people expect you to lose game one. People expect you to lose a lot of games.
That one had to hurt them though. That was a game where the 5-on-5 play where Calgary's super strong was broken up. Their goaltender literally only let one goal in. And it was
a hell of a goal too. Like what was he supposed to do?
They lost. That has to stink. That's the one, like that's one that you hope you steal from them. Like, yeah, they're the favorites. Yeah, they can outscore you. Yeah, they can punch you in the mouth. When it's that, and there was only 3 chances each side, that's the one you hope you steal. But they just couldn't get anything. Their depth offense is not good. Jamie I think Benn is a shell of himself.
The other thing I think too, like, we talked about, the idea of getting the crowd into it or taking the crowd out. And I thought if you were watching the other series, we're recording this on Wednesday between games 1 and 2, and there's an Edmonton game tonight. If you watched the first Edmonton game against LA on Monday night, really good hockey game. And if you're an Oilers fan, shitty ending. Like, let's be completely honest. Shitty ending. But you win, you live by Mike Smith, you die by Mike Smith. But I thought the thing the Kings did really well there is the Oilers fans, like, I knew people in the building, that place was rocking. And then the Kings scored and the air got let out. That's what you have to do as a road team. And I thought if you're the Kings, you thought, okay, they're come out, gonna weather the storm, pick our spots, score an early goal, get the crowd out of it, and then play our game. And I thought largely the Kings did that. The Kings played a really good game, not a perfect game, but they played their strengths. They played a smart road game, and they gave themselves a chance to win off of a fluky goal. And they scored off of they got a 1-0 series lead on the road. They stole a game, and this is the kind of game where if you're Dallas, you watch how LA played in Edmonton, and you go, that's what we got to do in Calgary. And I thought the Flames did a much better job in the first period than Dallas did setting a tone. If you're the Flames and you're thinking, okay, this might just be a 1-goal game, the Flames did what they always do. They played a good first period, they scored early, and then they defended. And the Flames because the Flames were up, they didn't have to open up their systems at all and do stretch passes or anything too fancy. I thought both teams gave up a lot of turnovers in the neutral zone, but the Flames, I thought they didn't have a lot of odd man rushes against. They did, like Jacob Markstrom, 3 high danger even strength chances against. He did not have to do a lot of cool looking saves, a lot of crazy.
He didn't have to do a lot of basic looking saves either.
And if the idea that the Flames are going to get as far as they get based on defense, goaltending, and timely scoring, well, that game, defense, goaltending, timely scoring. And if you're the Stars now, like I think pressure in game 1 was on the Flames, because the Flames, we had been hearing for 3 years, especially the last 2 years, but it's 3 years since the 19 series. Oh God, are they ever going to do something? And okay, they had a great regular season, full marks of the regular season, 50 wins, first place. No one's going to poke holes in the regular season. It was well deserved. They're going to hang a banner in the Raptors at the end of the season. And I think this is a season worth feeling good about. But they came out and the pressure was on the Flames in game 1, because you don't want to get down in a series when it's the first time you've hosted fans in your building since you lost in game 5 to Colorado. And so, yeah, they got the win. Now, if you're Dallas, you're thinking, okay, we played pretty well and we didn't have anything for it. The Flames admittedly don't think they played. The Flames thought they played pretty well, but the Flames probably have a lot of, like, the video meetings the Flames have today are probably like 20 little things that they thought they could do better. And they probably could have done 20 little things better, but the Flames, the Stars played.
Jake Ottinger stopped a lot of dangerous chances.
But he saw a lot of stuff.
Yeah, like Mangiapane's that one pad save he made, like he had to make on the power play there for one time.
Right into the pillows, though. Right into the pillows.
Well, he was
Saw it the
going
whole
for the
way.
bottom right corner and is hoping to maybe slide it under while he slid over. Like I saw his logic there, but he got there, right? And then there was another one that was so close. Didn't one go off the post too? Like there were some chances in the power play, but again, both teams were power plays were messed up because their number one quarterback was gone.
Yeah,
Like
but
that's what the Klingberg Anderson thing.
I'm kind of curious. Do you agree with me? Like, I think the pressure's on Dallas in game 2 because
I still think it's on Calgary because they're at home.
Explain.
Well, they're at home. They don't want it to get away from them. They're still trying to prove to themselves as a group, like they blew it last time, right? Like they know this is the team they blew it against last time. Like they didn't they have a series lead? Didn't they have
the Flames led 1-0 and 2-1 in that series, and then they lost in 6.
Yeah, so to me, it's still in that room. These is the same guys that lost to this. Now it's a different roster, but same team. It's still on them. It's go out, get the control of the series, and go to Dallas, knowing that if you take one game in Dallas, that their hope is like you've destroyed pretty much all of their hope. So like Dallas doesn't have any pressure at all, no matter what. They're playing with house money based on how they got here, like we said. And, their players might have expectations, but the fan base is probably, and a lot of the rest of the world's kind of like, even if they get by Calgary, like, can they get by the whatever juggernaut comes out of the Central Division? Can they defend well enough to stop a Kopitar or a McDavid? Like, to me, it's still on Calgary because Calgary, they haven't won a game 2 in forever since 2004, so 18 years, and
11 game 2s that they've lost in a row.
Yeah, so to me, it's still on them. They themselves need to come out and just take control now, and then know that going forward, no matter what happens, when you can do it, and you can really beat Dallas. And the one thing I really like about Calgary is, whether they get up or whether they get down, I really don't feel they're going to change how they play. They didn't do that all year. 82 games of consistency, and 83 games of consistency, because game 1 was consistent from start to finish.
I'll show my work. I think the pressure's on Dallas now because if you come home down 2-rip to a team that is historically, and especially this year, been so good on the road, I don't know if you're coming back from that.
Well, that's that's partially why I believe it's on Calgary. Like if Calgary can do it tonight, that's huge because now Dallas has to win 4 and 5, basically, don't they? Yeah, math is hard. Yeah, so winning 4 or 5 period against anybody ever is a tall task. So if Calgary, that's why I think Calgary can do some serious damage if they put the pressure on themselves. And to me,
I'll agree with you there.
Every night, every game, the pressure's on the team that want, because the team's the one that needs to win. The team's the one that has to want to win. And they've got guys like, it's time to mention Lucic was in his friggin' element.
I'll say this. I thought that, like, especially live, the fourth line was really good. I mean, I didn't like Brett Ritchie's penalty. I thought it was kind of a sloppy penalty to take, but it's a penalty of intensity. He was engaged. You can't really rag on it too much, but that whole line, I thought Lewis and Ritchie and Lucic were just throwing the body around. I thought more. I would say in that game, I want to see more from the first and the second line, like the Lindholm and the back line at 5-on-5. I thought the Yarncroke line with Dubé and Coleman, especially Coleman was great. I thought that line and the fourth line, like the bottom 6 forwards, were just very, very good at setting a tone, at playing a style, and then just grinding. And I thought, I think if the Flames play the same way they did and just tighten up their details a bit and stop the penalty taking a bit, like just a little bit of a tweak, I think that's a sustainable kind of play. They can play for, 20 more games.
Blake Coleman and Milan Lucic showed why they're champions last night. Like they showed why. And you know who else they're rubbing off on, and he's playing like it, and he has been playing like it recently down the stretch, is Dylan Dubé. Third period, like usually playoff games, the first period just hit everything that moves. and then it dies off as the game goes on. To start the third period, the Flames were hitting everything. That fourth line kept it going, and Dubé kept it going. On the forecheck, if the Dallas Star touched the puck, and they were pretty good at that. They're pretty good at dumping it in and keeping it away from Ottinger so he can't come out and play it. The D has to go back, and the D gets hit every single time. And when you hear you're going back to grab the puck on the boards and all you hear is Lou, and you just know you're about to get steamrolled, you're not making the best choices with the puck, right? Like you're mortified you're about to get killed by a freight train, and you move the puck without thinking, and that's how you can create offensive zone turnovers, and that's how you can get some quick goals in the playoffs.
And honestly, that's with how important the Flames D are to how, they have confidence in their D. I think they feel they have 8D can play meaningful minutes in the playoffs. I mean, Connor Mackey's very good in the AHL. He's been good in the times we've seen him in the NHL. Michael Stone, there might be one or two better sevens in the league this year, but in terms of a 7 at league min, he's been very good when they needed him to be. But I think that the Flame 6 is really sustainable. And they showed last, in game 1, you lose a guy, you could just, they can mix and match and make it work. They're better if everybody's there, and they're better if everybody's healthy. And I think the more time you spend, crashing and banging in the other team's zone and wearing them their D, the easier it's going to be to win 4 games. And, that I think the fact that they played so well is why they won game 1. I thought they did a really nice job setting the tone physically. But again, if they can tighten up just a little bit less ticky-tacky stuff and just stay out of the box, realistically, if you're the Flames and you take 2 fewer penalties in that game, you're basically playing, it's a lot easier to roll your guys on 5-on-5 and set the tone that way.
I'm not complaining about reffing in the Flames game particularly. Like Sutter said it. I've watched every game so far. I've watched bits and pieces of every game. Most notably, I've watched the entire Leafs game. I watched the entirety of the Oilers game.
We won't hold the Leafs against you.
And I watched the entirety of regulation of Pittsburgh, New York. I was expecting it to end before the Flames game started. It ended pretty much almost the same time the Flames game ended.
as an aside, so the Flames used 3 goaltenders in the bubble season: Markstrom, Riddick, Louis Domingue. Louis Domingue only played 1 game.
We got to win, baby.
Louis Domingue comes in
spicy pork, baby.
Casey DeSmith had a lower body injury.
It wasn't a cramp. It was a hurt. He got hurt.
Yeah. So he tweaks something and got pulled from the game. So Louis Domingue comes in off the. Okay. So Louis Domingue, just so folks know, Louis Domingue, really nice guy. I believe is an Alan Walsh client. We love you, Alan Walsh. Never change. But Louis Domingue, he came into Calgary and he was the taxi squad goal. He never played. Then, he moved on to the Pittsburgh organization. And he's been playing, he's like their 4th string goalie. He's playing behind, I believe he's playing behind, who's hurt?
Jarry and DeSmith.
Jarry and DeSmith are hurt now. And I believe Alex Diorio is being called up to back up Louis Domingue. So if you're the Penguins, you're already down Tristan Jarry. So you have Casey DeSmith, who's pretty good. He's not Tristan Jarry or Matt Murray good, but he's pretty good. And so you have Casey DeSmith, and you have your 3rd stringer on the bench, and you're going, okay, let's hope everybody can get healthy soon. And then you're like, oh no, you got to throw in Louis Domingue. And I can imagine, the Snickers from Penguins fans going, Louis Domingue, what the hell? This guy barely played this year, let alone last year. Louis Domingue, 17 saves in overtime, and it really, he got thrown in cold into overtime, into multiple playoff overtime where,
double OT is when he came in.
Double OT in front of tired players
Madison Square Garden.
Tired players who tend to make, shitty decisions with the puck when they're tired, because that's what tired people do. They just make bad puck decisions. And he made 17 saves and got the win. And so that, and again, because of spicy pork and broccoli. David Riddick, the other goalie, the other ex-Flame, did not have as good a night. He gave up 4 and got the yank in the first game against Colorado. Daryl Sutter very famously put it, you get 8 days wasted. You're going to get the shit kicked out of you if you play Colorado.
Some of those goals Ritter let in were not good.
One game,
the second one and the 5th one were. You gotta stop those in the playoffs. One was just a shot off the wing, and he lost his far post and went down, and it just beat him clean. And I'm just like, oh, Dave, buddy. You can't.
He has not looked comfortable in the net since
Connor Ingram got some positive comments from his head coach, and it looks like he's going to start game 2.
I don't think he can go back to Riddick for game.
Because remember the last game of the regular season, he let in, like, they took Colorado he played Colorado and they took him to a shootout, but they were up 4-0. Right. So he,
and then in the next game they were up 4-0 again.
And that was Ingram. So, like, what are you gonna do here?
All we can say is our friends in Nashville, you're lovely people. We wish you well. Get well soon, UC Saros.
That's what happens if you don't have a good. Wow. Ever since that stick flip in Edmonton, he hasn't had any consistency. The poor guy.
Yeah. And honestly, like, okay, I was talking to some folks in the press box, some out of towners, about David Riddick when the score came out, and I'll say this, okay, guys, everybody huddle up. You guys know that Big Save Dave was a sarcastic nickname, right? David Riddick took over the net for the Flames in the first half of that season. He became the starter. He and Mike Smith were a tandem, and Mike Smith had 3 or 4 games where he just looked awful. Like, he couldn't make a save. And so when Dave Riddick got put in there, like, Dave Riddick was the year before, he was a good but not great backup. He was a perfectly acceptable backup, second half of back-to-backs on the road. He always got thrown in, and he always gave you perfectly acceptable goaltending. Next year, Mike Smith was fighting it, and people were the boo birds were out every time Smith went wandering, and then they threw Dave Riddick in because he was their backup and they had no one else, and they put him in, and he was pretty good. Was he great? Occasionally, he was really good, but he's usually pretty good. And the nickname Big Save Dave came because he made saves and Mike Smith didn't. So every save that Dave Riddick made was a big save because the other guy's making no saves. So I'll say this, Dave Riddick, having dealt with him for a couple of years, gem of a human being, really nice guy, wish him well. I have no idea how the Flames got a 3rd rounder from Toronto for him. Yeah, cool. I mean, that's the game. The Flames got a second round. They got a second round pick for Ray Tobera. So I mean, goaltending's weird. If a goalie coach falls in love with you, then your team's going to get a good pick out of it. But I mean,
or depends how desperate the GM is to get some sort of new. Does it sometimes what they have is probably just fine. Like, but because you're going to get absolutely roasted by the fans if you don't do anything.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to remember. You probably have more Leafs connections than I do. The trade deadline last year when they got the 3rd, that was when they weren't sure how healthy their goaltenders were going to be, much like this year in Toronto at the trade deadline. And so the Flames retained salary. Correct me. Actually, the Flames, when they retained salary on David Riddick, was the first time in modern Flames history since the mechanism was introduced into the CBA where the Flames ever retained salary on a transaction. So the Flames
didn't want to go to Michael Hutchinson. At least really didn't. And
they had tried him. They tried him, and they thought
the Leafs ended up having to use Michael Hutchinson.
Yeah. So I mean,
he's inevitable. He's like Brett Ritchie. He's inevitable.
Yeah. So I mean, so that was the hockey story in terms of Flames goaltenders or Flames related goaltenders on Tuesday night. A 16 save shutout for Jacob Markstrom in a game where the Flames played really tight defense, and good on him. A not quite as good night for four goals against, and didn't even finish the period for David Riddick was it 5-0 or 6-0 win for Colorado?
5-0 when he got pulled, and it was 15 minutes into the game.
Nashville didn't play great defense in front of him, but they didn't play terrible defense in front of him. They played fine, but if you play fine against Colorado, you're going to get destroyed.
If you play good against Colorado, you still get destroyed. You have to play perfect. Like it's kind of like last night, Dallas, they did pretty much play perfect at 5-on-5, but they didn't, like, they took a penalty. Calgary got a power play goal, right? They killed all their penalties. The difference in the entire game was a power play goal. Again,
face-offs and special teams.
Because
face-offs and special teams. They won a face-off.
If you look at it, like, how many more games are going to be that close? Like, Calgary has dominated teams all year. That was one where it was pretty even. Who are you to say that that's going to happen again this series? Like, that is just, to me, if I were a Stars fan, that would just crush me. That whole loss would just crush me because it was right there. But yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, if you're the Flames, like I'm really obviously it's the playoffs. We're all excited. I'm kind of curious and excited to see what game 2 is like, because I know all we know is it's going to have a hell of an atmosphere again.
I bet you it's louder, because if some people might take Friday off work, and then they'll go full Pinder. They'll go full Pinder.
I know, being around the building during the season, I know a lot of the security people. Security hates 8 o'clock games. Daryl Sutter and the security people hate 8 o'clock games. The coach hates 8 o'clock games because it screws up the routine. Security, it just means that there's 2 extra hours for people to drink, or an extra hour for people to drink. So everybody's a little bit drunker and a little bit more rowdy, and that leads to shenanigans. Thankfully, I got told last night it was relatively quiet from a shenanigans standpoint. Thankfully, it was a good game, good atmosphere. Everybody went home happy. Driving home, there's a lot of hooting and hollering on 17th Avenue. So thanks to everybody who shouted profanity, uplifting profanity at me as I drove home. Good to see you too. Yeah, I think game. I think you're exactly right. I think it's a Friday night. I think people might say, screw it, take Friday morning off, or take Friday off entirely, and see how it goes. And I think it's going to be. I think game 2 is going to be the one that swings it. I mean, if the Flames win game 2 and they go up 2-rip for the first time in 18 years, maybe it's a shorter series than we thought. I thought maybe Flames in 6, maybe Flames in 5. I don't want to predict.
I don't like. It's very hard to predict a sweep. Like
I think it's really tough. Realistically, again, there's no bad teams in the playoffs, and unless the gap in talent between teams is like Colorado and the rest of the league, or Florida and the rest of the league, very rarely are you going to see a sweep. But I think if you go up 2-0 and you're heading into a road building, if you're the Flames, if you're going to Big D up 2-0, you just need to win 1 and then try to win 1 at home. And then you hold serve.
Game 5 would be Wednesday next week here in Calgary.
Yeah,
I believe Saturday, Monday, Wednesday. Yep.
Yeah. The game 5 would be Wednesday. Game 6, if necessary, would be Sunday.
Sunday would be game 7. Sorry.
Yeah. You're just thinking of the home games. Yeah. So for those of you following at home, Thursday is game 2. It will be necessary. The 2 games in Dallas are on the books. They will be Saturday night at 7:30 Mountain, then Monday night, 7:30 Mountain. And then if they still need games, Friday would be a Flames home, or Wednesday would be a Flames home game, time TBA. Depends on TV. It'll probably be 8. Then Friday, if necessary, back in Dallas, time TBA, probably 7:30. Then, if necessary, game 7 would be Sunday, the 15th in Calgary, time TBA, probably
earlier, because it
depends on TV schedule.
If the Eastern teams series are done, then they'll start the Flames game maybe an hour earlier.
And especially it's for double headers, right? Maybe it's just me. If it's a Sunday, maybe get done a little bit earlier. But I don't know. I don't control it.
Start at 6 or something like that.
We used to do 5 and 6 o'clock starts all the time on Sundays. But then the TV people took over. They're like, let's do 7:30 starts, Ryan. It'll be fine. I go,
you can stay up all night Sunday, Ryan. You don't need to do anything Monday at the university, Ryan.
I don't have to do anything ever. I basically got chained to a radiator. I just do things for people for money.
You're not supposed to tell the public that. You're not supposed to tell the public that. I'm gonna have to tell Bag Milk that now.
I get chained to a radiator. Actually, no, because we moved the radiator out of frame. I'm no longer chained to a radiator. I have a long tether from radiator.
We do feed them, folks. We give them.
I get a bucket of fish heads
snacks once a week.
I get a bucket of fish heads a week, and it's how I stay alive. Yeah. I think this is if you're a Flames fan, outside of going, man, I wish they could have scored more goals in game 1. What are your complaints?
Not picky about how
too many penalties, not quite enough goals, and what else? Like that's it? Is that the whole? That's the complaining, and those 2 things are probably connected.
Every win they get, I'm not going to complain. I'm going to be like, I noticed this, good for winning, right? This is the time of year where
this is the type
I keep.
You and Daryl Sutter see these things the same way. I will try not to overanalyze or over dissect these wins. It's in my nature. I'm sorry. Especially 1-0 wins. 1-0 wins. 2-1-0 wins now. But yeah, I think now we're at the point now. If you're a Flames fan, I mean, you like them to win in particular ways, but it's also like as the pilots say, any landing you can walk away from is a good landing. And in terms of the playoffs, it's a sprint to it's both a marathon. Blake Coleman said it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's both a marathon and a sprint. Every game itself is a sprint. You're just trying to get more goals than the other team quickly and stay there. And the Flames did that in game 1. And then you reset, you do another one. So it's a marathon in the sense that it's a series of sprints that turn into a marathon over time. But it's really a sprint. So you're basically trying to get to the finish line, and in the playoffs, there's no bad wins. There's just wins and there's losses. You can't say you had a good loss. You can't say you had a bad win. There's wins and there's losses.
My favorite comparison is the Leafs won 5-0 and the Flames won 1-0.
They count the same.
Right now, the difference is nothing. They both have the exact same lead, and game 2 is going to happen. Like I said, 7-2. Colorado whooped Dallas. Does not matter if Nashville wins Colorado whooped Nashville. Doesn't matter if Nashville comes out and wins game 2, right? Like that's just the point of the don't getting too far. I see a lot. It's my own little pet peeve. Everyone goes 1 of 16, right? I'm like 1. Let's do the next one now. I'm not worried about 14 or 10.
It's 1 of right now. It's 1 of 4.
I'm like
4.
I just want 2 now. I don't care about 3, 4, 5 or up. I just want 2. So that's just me though. I'm just raining on people's parades because I'm being way too. But
I think that's the way the coaching staff looks at it. You know, if we put some truth syrup in Daryl Sutter, he'd be like, yeah, 1 win is great, but 2 wins would be better. So I don't like 1 win anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the way you have to look at it. I mean, once they get to 2 wins is great, but 3 wins is better. I think that's the way you got to look at it. I think being able to flip that switch, I think the mental side of a potentially 28 game playoff run. If all playoff series go to 27 games, the Flames in 2004 played 26 games. They played 2 shy of the maximum amount of games you could play. And so, Daryl's had playoff runs that went the maximum. He's had playoff runs where they swept 19. A couple series.
19 is the lowest ever. And that was Daryl. He went 16-3 in 2014, I believe.
Yep. And how many? I think one of the benefits. We'll talk. Well, at some point we'll stop speaking nicely about Daryl. But I mean, how many coaches are there in the league who've had the experience of going on long playoff runs that took the minimum and took the maximum? I don't think there's any.
Won and lost. Right? Like he's quite literally done. Like when he says, "I know," like when he's using the scrummer, he goes, I know, like, don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing, right? I'm just like, yeah, like literally of all the 32 vacant coaching positions, yeah, you do. Like, there's not that many currently coaching that have done more than him. We'll talk about this more in the off season, because I think at some point, I wrote about it on the site when Jerome McGinley got inducted to the Hall of Fame. A question I asked on the site was, has Daryl Sutter done enough to get inducted in the Hall of Fame? And the answer my consensus was probably. It's pretty close. I mean, if you compare Daryl Sutter, if Daryl Sutter stopped coaching today, he'd never do that middle of the playoff series. But if he decided to do it today and said, Kirk Muller, take over, I'm done. His numbers, regular season and playoffs, stack up very nicely against some of the guys who came before him. And especially I think one of the more interesting comparisons, and we can get into this, we'll get into this in more detail in future episodes, especially as we get to Hall of Fame time. I think it's much more challenging now to win a Stanley Cup in a 32 team league than it is in a 16 league or a 12 team league. And Daryl's won multiple Stanley Cups in the expansion era during the 25, 26, 30 team NHL. And that's kind of incredible, because hockey's much more of a crapshoot, especially the playoffs, than it was in the original 6 era, than it was in the earlier eras. There's much less consolidation of talent. There's much more, there's more parity. Contracts are weirder. There's much more restrictions. It's tougher to put a good team together, keep them together, and then deal with the weird BS of randomness and chaos that is professional hockey in the playoffs. And the fact he's got multiple Stanley Cups, he's got a ton of playoff wins, he's got tons of regular season wins. He's 11th right now all time in wins, 1 behind Mike Babcock. 700 is the next one. He ended the season on 699.
If you run his playoff numbers, he stacks up really nicely.
Yeah, and then the 2 cups, I think only 16 head coaches have won 2 Stanley Cups, and of those, I think only like 3 or 4 have won them with multiple teams. So
Yeah.
Even if you just take the 16 coaches in history have ever won 2 Stanley Cups, like, okay, that's Hall of Fame. If you're one of the 16 guys that's ever done it twice, that's Hall of Fame to me. But he doesn't, I guarantee you, he doesn't give 2 craps about whether he gets a call to go to the Hall. He cares right now about winning game 2.
Yeah. And honestly, I think, I wrote about this on the site earlier the week. I think the smart thing they did was, if you look at the guys they brought in, they already had Milan Lucic. And I think they looked at how much they're leaning on Lucic's experience and went, it's not enough. And
Blake Coleman.
They, Yarncroke has played a ton. Lewis, Toffoli, Coleman, like they brought in a bunch of guys with a bunch of trips to the series. And I think the more you do that, the more, like, between, you have
all those guys.
You have Kirk Muller, who's done it as a player. You've had Daryl Sutter, who's done it as a coach. You've had, a ton of guys with different backgrounds, different experiences, that if you're Dylan Dubé and you're like, or Oliver Shillington or Dan Vladar or whoever, you can go to someone in that room and they'll be able to help you manage the mental side of it. Because I think the hockey side of it, all these guys, my dad always says this, we always talk about, I talked about playoff experiences, like, well, come on, Ryan, these guys have played hockey all their life. They played in big games all their life. That's not really a big deal to them. And I agree and I disagree, because I think
not at this level.
There's a difference between there's a difference between doing it in the Memorial Cup, like, all due respect to the fine people of Kelowna, but I think it hits differently playing in the WHL playoffs or the Memorial Cup than playing the Stanley Cup playoffs, or playing. I think playing in the World Juniors and Olympics is probably translatable, but very few other things are. And I think having as many people as they have in those locker rooms who've done it, even if you look off the ice, like some of the trainers, training staff, the PR staff, a lot of these guys, have gone to the Olympics, gone to World Championships, gone to these kind of things in the past. And Jason LaBarbera went to the World Juniors. He coached the World Juniors.
Mm-hmm.
The training staff has done that. So I think, surrounding them with as many people as they have who've gone on those kind of experiences, I think they can help them manage the mental side of it. But I think, like you said, they've won 1 game. And what's next? They're going to try to win a second game.
Yep.
And what's next after that? We'll see. We'll see what's happened after they win 2.
By the time we record, it will at least 4 games have been played, and the Flames will when we record next time we record on Wednesday, most likely they will be a game. Like, there will be a game no matter what, because they won game 1, so they can't get swept. So
yeah. So it's a Wednesday now. We'll wind it down. We'll record next Wednesday, which will be either after a sweep, which I think it's safe to say neither of us are betting on a sweep.
No.
So probably when we record this next, it'll be in the run up to game 5 at the Saddle Dome. Probably. If we're wrong, please laugh at us. We will deserve it.
Yeah, but I'll gladly take a sweep. I'll gladly take it. I just don't expect.
If we get a few days off between series, or I think everyone will take that L. But yeah, so I think the nice thing is there will be some things to talk about the next time we record, because we have 3 more playoff games to talk about.
More storylines developing, more nastiness. Maybe there's tons of stuff that'll come our way, and we might lose some more hair, stuff like that. Like, it's playoff.
You've got some hair to lose, man. You've got some hair to lose.
It's going gray. The tail end of my school semester had starting to get some gray hairs in the beard.
My condolences, but you're almost done.
And I finished today.
Yeah,
so we're good. Yeah, it's summertime, baby.
Summertime for Shane and playoff hockey. I can't think of a better way to close off. So that'll do it for this edition of Flames Nation Radio, the playoff edition, the round 1 playoff edition. I'm Ryan. He's Shane. As usual, this was delivered to you by DoorDash and by Eau Claire Distillery, the makers of fine Rupert's whiskey, the official whiskey of the Calgary Flames. Again, cheap plug. Noah Adler and Princey will be gathering at the Red Lot on Thursday evening in the shadow of the Saddle Dome, and also the shadow of the construction that's going on beside the Saddle Dome. There's a lot of construction, so show up early or try to get there early. Parking's going to be a bitch, but Yeah, if you're going down there, head down to the Red Lot, meet up with Princey and Shane and Noah, and say hello. I'm gonna try to stop by momentarily, but I got the game.
You get in there. You
the-
get in there. It's gonna be funner in there than it is out there.
The game days as media is just a gong show because there's a lot of running around, a lot of prep, a lot of things to do, and we're already starting to you're doing prep for other things, so. But it's gonna be fun. So if you get a chance to go down, say hello to everyone. They might have swag, they might have stickers, they might just give you a high five or a cheers with their beer or whatever. But it should be fun. So make sure you head down and say hello to everybody. That'll do it for us this week. For Shane, I'm Ryan. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in a week for either Game 5 or people saying we told you so.